A 24-year-old geologist drives into the Arizona desert for work and never comes back. Weeks later, his Jeep is found crashed in a ravine, clothes scattered nearby, but no sign of him. Police say it was just a tragic accident, but his father says the scene was staged, and he believes he has the evidence to back it up. Today, we're discussing the disappearance of Daniel Robinson, a young geologist who vanished under mysterious circumstances in the Arizona desert. Despite strange evidence, conflicting data, and unanswered questions, police have ruled out foul play. But Daniel's father is still searching, and he's not giving up until he gets answers. Hi, I'm Amanda, and this is Their Voice Matters, where we dig into true crime stories that deserve to be told with clarity and care. If you care about bringing more attention to cases like Daniel's, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to the podcast, please be sure to follow and leave a rating. It really helps these stories reach more people. Daniel Robinson is bold, adventurous, and full of confidence. The kind of person who doesn't just accept the world as it is, he challenges it. His dad, David Robinson, put it simply, quote, "Daniel would go after whatever he wants, very adventurous and loved to be part of everything." Daniel was born without a right hand, something that initially worried his parents. They encouraged him to try prosthetics, hoping it would help him fit in. But Daniel had no interest in hiding who he was. He wanted to do things his own way. And he did. He taught himself to play the French horn, then the trumpet. He was athletic, loved to travel, and wanted to experience other cultures. He even told his family he planned to become a millionaire by the time he turned 30. While David was deployed in Afghanistan with the military, he'd catch glimpses of Daniel in the local news stories, excelling, achieving, pushing forward. David says Daniel could accomplish anything he set his mind to. And whatever he was doing, he stayed connected to his family. They'd talk regularly, sometimes for hours, and he always let them know where he was going. David said, quote, "Every time we talked, it was always a 2-hour conversation." In college, Daniel discovered a love for geology. He graduated with honors from the College of Charleston in 2019, then landed a job in Phoenix, Arizona, a dream location for a young geologist. He worked for Matrix New World Engineering, helping with water access near Buckeye, one of the fastest growing cities in the state. It was important work. Buckeye depends on careful water management. Daniel was right at the center of it, helping to make sure there'd be enough water for the future of the community. Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021, Daniel left for work that morning just like any other day. He got into his blue 2017 Jeep Renegade and drove out to a remote job site in the desert near Buckeye, Arizona. There was nothing out there. No buildings, no houses, just vast open desert for miles. Just after 9 a.m., Daniel met with a coworker named Ken, someone he had never worked with before. The two of them drove deeper into the desert toward a well site, with Daniel following Ken in his car and arriving around 9:30 a.m. According to Ken, their interaction was brief, about 15 minutes, but he said Daniel seemed off. He described him as quiet and distracted, occasionally staring out into the desert. When Daniel did speak, Ken said his comments didn't make much sense. But it's worth noting that this is the one and only time that Ken ever met Daniel. So while something may have seemed unusual to him, he didn't have a baseline for what Daniel was normally like. Whether his behavior was truly out of character, or it was Daniel just being his usual self, that may not be something that Ken would be able to judge. At one point, Daniel reportedly asked Ken if he wanted to go back to Phoenix. Ken said it looked like it might rain and grabbed his phone to check the weather. Then, without much warning, Daniel got into his Jeep, waved goodbye, and drove off. Daniel reportedly told Ken that he was going back to Phoenix to rest. Ken said Daniel drove south on the dirt road away from the site, heading toward the main road. He reportedly mentioned this interaction to the project manager, Steve, and then went back to his work duties. Around 3 p.m., after hearing that no one had seen or heard from Daniel all day, Ken went out to look for him. According to the police report, Ken said the road from their site runs north to south. When he reached a T intersection, he noticed tire tracks that turned west, away from the main road and deeper into the desert. He believed they were Daniel's tracks because it had rained while they were at the well site and these tracks looked fresh. He followed the road for a while, but he didn't find anything. But while Ken was out searching in the desert, there were others who were starting to get worried too. People much closer to Daniel, who knew his routines and knew something was wrong. That afternoon, Daniel's father, David, who lives in South Carolina, got a concerning call from his daughter, who also lives in Phoenix, and he started to worry. No one had heard from Daniel, and one of his coworkers showed up at her house looking for him. Calls to Daniel's phone were going unanswered. That wasn't like him. Daniel always checked in. Daniel's sister drove to his apartment in Tempe. He wasn't there. The blinds were slightly open. A light had been left on. The family immediately began calling around. Friends, coworkers, anyone who might have heard from him. David was across the country, so he contacted Tempe police and asked them to check on Daniel. But since Daniel had last been seen in Buckeye, Tempe police told him to call Buckeye police instead. When he did, they told him he had to wait several hours before filing a missing person report. That's a response families hear far too often, even though there's no law requiring a wait period. Side note, as I mentioned in my episode on the Alonzo Brooks case, there's no law that requires you to wait a certain amount of time before filing a missing person report, but families are often told to wait. Usually because police believe the person will turn up at some point or they just needed some space. In reality, though, those early hours can be crucial. If this ever happens to you, don't be afraid to push back. Ask for a supervisor. Reach out to advocacy groups. Time matters. Eventually, around 7 p.m. Arizona time, David was able to file the report. Daniel's name was added to the National Missing Persons database, and Tempe police agreed to conduct a welfare check. Officers visited Daniel's apartment, walked around the outside, and confirmed the lights were still on. But that was as far as they went. David hoped they would go inside to look for Daniel, but they didn't. David was adamant. This was not like his son. Daniel kept in touch. He was responsible. Something was wrong. He also requested a helicopter search, but was told they don't fly the helicopters at night, so the search would have to wait until the next day. But Daniel was already missing, and crucial time was ticking away. Much of what we know about Daniel's disappearance comes from two sources: the official police report and statements from his father, David. Some information overlaps. Other parts directly contradict. I'll present both throughout this section, and I'll let you know which details are disputed. When Daniel didn't return home, police initially believed he might have gotten lost in the desert while trying to get back to the main road. They searched around the job site, but found nothing. Tempe police later entered Daniel's apartment and noted his bedroom was in disarray, but the rest of his home looked neat. Through digital forensics, David later learned that someone had accessed Daniel's personal computer after he went missing. That person wasn't law enforcement, and their identity is still unknown. On June 25th, the police report states that a helicopter search of the well site area was conducted, but David disputes this. According to him, there's no flight data that confirms that this search ever happened, and no one, including a rancher in the area, remembers seeing or hearing a helicopter search. Police also attempted to access Daniel's Jeep's Uconnect system to retrieve GPS data, but said it wasn't working. They cited a possible dead battery, outdated software, or tampering. David later said they told him they could recover data, just not GPS grids, which refers to the coordinates. Police requested Daniel's phone records, but without a search warrant, which they reportedly weren't able to get because there wasn't a crime scene, important data remained inaccessible. Meanwhile, David drove across the country from South Carolina to begin searching for his son himself. On July 19th, nearly a month after Daniel disappeared, a rancher discovered his 2017 Jeep Renegade in a 20-foot ravine about 1.5 miles from the well site. It was on its side. The driver's side window was broken, the windshield was severely cracked, and one of the sunroof panels was on the ground. The driver's seatbelt had been buckled, and all airbags had deployed. The vehicle's contents included Daniel's phone, keys, wallet which had cards but no cash, his work laptop and documents, a hard hat with water and an intact business card inside, several unopened water bottles, a basketball, cardboard box, and some clothes. There were also clothes scattered on the ground near the Jeep. Jeans that were inside out, 2 work boots, an orange vest with the Matrix Company logo, a t-shirt, and socks that were also inside out. No blood or signs of injury were found, and there was no sign of Daniel. Police said they missed spotting the vehicle during previous searches because of the thick brush and rough terrain. According to the police report, a low-flying helicopter and drone were dispatched and searched the area, as well as foot searches and off-road vehicle searches, as well as several cadaver dogs and tracking dogs. But they came up empty. Daniel wasn't anywhere to be found. The crash data was downloaded to try to piece together what happened. That analysis showed that vehicle had been in a rollover crash at approximately 30 miles per hour. Speed increased just before the crash. 44 ignition cycles were recorded after the crash, with 45th and 46th cycles being attributed to investigators turning on and off the vehicle. An 11-mile discrepancy was found between the odometer and the crash data, which is something they would learn can be a known issue with Jeeps. Police believe Daniel crashed, became disoriented, exited the car through the sunroof, removed all his clothing, and wandered into the desert heat, barefoot, without using any of the water left in the Jeep. They ruled out foul play. David and Jeff McGrath disagree. David hired crash reconstructionist Jeff McGrath to investigate. McGrath has reconstructed thousands of crashes, and this one didn't make sense to him. He believes the crash scene was staged. Some of the inconsistencies he noted. The Jeep looked too clean for a vehicle supposedly sitting in the desert for a month. There were no signs that the brush was flattened or impacted by a crash. One of Daniel's boots was pinned under the Jeep, which has never been explained. One of the 2 sunroof panels was missing from its original place, and it wasn't the one above the driver's seat. That panel was found partially under the Jeep's hood. The panel also requires a special key to remove. McGrath attempted to replicate the crash, but couldn't reach 30 miles per hour in the same terrain. He was only able to get to 20 miles per hour. He said the broken glass found didn't match the Jeep's windows, and there wasn't enough of it inside and outside the car to account for the damage. The antenna and roof were intact and undamaged, inconsistent with a rollover crash. The rancher who found the Jeep said it hadn't been there earlier in the week, let alone for nearly a month. He said cattle, which are curious and often lick vehicles, would have left marks on it had it been there for weeks. There were also no hoof prints or droppings around the vehicle. They passed through that area often. They would have investigated the Jeep, and there would have been evidence of that. He told reporters, quote, "There's no way that car was there that long. They would have licked that thing clean." There were additional discrepancies as well. The passenger airbag deployed. Police said it could have been due to a sensor sensitivity or system setting. David believes it means someone else was in the car. David noted the business card in the water-filled hard hat was still intact after a month. He later tested similar cards and found they disintegrated quickly in water. Some items, like the hard hat and backpack, appear to move between photos, suggesting the scene may have been altered while being documented. The clothes outside the Jeep were never tested for DNA. Daniel's family doesn't recognize them. One boot was trapped under the Jeep. A sock matching one near the car was later found half a block from the well site. David says he found a cut rope shaped like a noose nearby and photographed it. He told police, but says the rope has since disappeared. Red paint transfer was found on the Jeep, possibly from a previous impact. Police said Daniel's phone lost battery or service on June 23rd, but his family insists it rang until June 24th before going to voicemail, meaning it still had service and was still working. While the discrepancy between the extra 11 miles on the odometer versus the crash data may be able to be explained as a known issue with Jeeps, the ignition cycles after the accident have never officially been explained. In August 2022, a detective used a specialized tool to reanalyze Daniel's cell phone data. He recovered location logs from an app called Mile IQ, which Daniel used to track mileage. Here's what they found. Trip 1, 6:26 to 7:16 a.m. from near Daniel's apartment to a parking lot near another job site on Verrado Road. Trip 2, 8:16 to 9:05 a.m. from the Verrado site to a Shell gas station. Trip 3, 9:07 to 10:32 a.m. from Shell to the desert ravine where the Jeep was later found. The app showed Daniel's phone arriving in the ravine around 10:05 a.m. and stopping location tracking completely at 10:32 a.m. While this data appears to support the official timeline, the report cautions that carved data like this should be confirmed with additional evidence. David has been outspoken in his criticism of Buckeye police. He believes they didn't take the case seriously from the start, and he says he's had to push them to do searches. He says they were slow to act and failed to treat it as suspicious. They turned over all of Daniel's belongings to the family in August 2021, signaling they didn't plan to test anything. He believes they revised their reports to include work done by his own search team and investigators. He says they refused to process key evidence like clothing or properly collect the noose-shaped rope. He has said some of their reports contain misleading statements or omissions. He's also said they've refused to take his information that directly conflicts with their theories. At one point, police say they requested access to Daniel's computer, which was in David's possession, and that David declined unless they obtained a warrant, saying, quote, "Please seek a warrant by making my son's case a possible criminal case." Despite the tension, police continued to follow up on leads and documented additional searches. In one part of the police report, they noted that the Jeep was swabbed for DNA and fingerprints, though testing didn't appear to be requested until 17 months later. David has also questioned details from Ken, the coworker who last saw Daniel. Ken told police he believed Daniel drove west after leaving the job site. But David points out that that direction leads to a power plant with a gate, not back to the main road, where Daniel would have been trying to go. He says at that point, Daniel should have known that he was going the wrong direction and would have turned around. Police said Daniel had been acting strangely in the days leading up to his disappearance. He'd reportedly cut his hair, talked about changing himself, and seemed distracted and not like himself, especially when discussing a woman he'd just met named Caitlin, who had told him she wasn't interested in him. Daniel had recently met Caitlin while he was delivering groceries through Instacart. According to Caitlin, they met on June 12th, and she and a friend invited him in to hang out with them after he delivered their groceries. She said he was polite and friendly, but she said after that, Daniel was making unannounced visits to her home, and she quickly became uncomfortable. Eventually, she asked him to stop coming by and to leave her alone. Police included the following text exchange in their report. I'm going to read the full exchange as it is in the report. It's long, but I think it's important to see the full context of these text messages to better understand the situation. Sunday, June 13th, 2:29 a.m. Caitlin texts Daniel a link, which was Eckhart Tolle's Essential Teachings podcast. Daniel replies, "Hey." Monday, June 14th, 7:19 p.m. Daniel, "Hey, I accidentally left my canopy outside your house. Is it still there? If so, is it okay if I come pick it up? Also, the podcast was great." Tuesday, June 15th, 1:37 p.m. Caitlin, "Yes, you can come pick it up whenever." Tuesday, June 15th, 8:30 p.m. Daniel, "Thanks. How do I get there again? I can come now or tomorrow afternoon to grab it." Wednesday, June 16th, 2:06 p.m. Caitlin, "Hi, I saw you on the camera. I'm in Flagstaff and will be home later tonight. If you want, I can put it out front by the chairs before I head out for work tomorrow morning." Wednesday, June 16th, 3:12 p.m. Daniel sends a red heart emoji. At 10:13 p.m. Daniel, "I'm sorry." Thursday, June 17th, 6:39 p.m. Caitlin, "Please stop showing up unannounced." Daniel, "Okay, I won't ever again." Caitlin, "Thanks, and I'm looking right now and I don't see the canopy in the garage." Daniel, "Don't worry about it, I already have it." Caitlin, question mark? "I'm confused." Daniel, "I did grab it yesterday. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry for disappearing the other day," with a sad face emoji. "I couldn't stop thinking about you." Saturday, June 19th, 12:44 p.m. Daniel, can we hang out? 1:48 p.m. Caitlin, I'm not home. Daniel, okay. Sunday, June 20th, 12:14 a.m. Daniel, I love you. 8:28 a.m. Are you home today? 9:36 a.m. Caitlin, honestly, you showing up at my house unannounced made me extremely uncomfortable. I will not be home today, but I don't see us hanging out anytime soon. Daniel, okay, but do you have any doubt? Either way, I'll have to be okay with your answer. Monday, June 21st, 11:44 a.m. Daniel, how are you feeling? 3:46 p.m. Daniel, I'm outside of your place. Caitlin, question mark, question mark, question mark? Please stop doing that. I'm not even home. This is not okay. Daniel, I guess it's not. Caitlin, not you guess. I've told you it's not okay and to not come to my home unannounced. Daniel, are you okay with me? Caitlin, no. This isn't normal nor acceptable. Daniel, what is normal? Caitlin, making plans before showing up at someone's home, and if someone has expressed that you've made them uncomfortable, you need to back off. Daniel, do you hate me? Caitlin, I don't hate you, but please leave me alone. 8:46 p.m. Daniel, you're right. In his final message to her on Tuesday, June 22nd at 3:07 p.m., Daniel wrote, the world can get better, but I'll have to take all the time I can, or we can, whatever to name it. I'll either see you again or never see you again. David believes police put too much weight on this interaction. He also said that some of the messages included in the police report are not on Daniel's phone, and he disputes the claim that they were deleted and recovered as police claim. He said Daniel was simply being Daniel, passionate, intense, and always full of ideas. According to him, the version of Daniel that police described didn't match the version of his son that he had spoken to just days earlier. He said they had talked for 2 hours about various things, including Caitlin. He said, quote, we talked about that young lady, but he never said that he loved her. Yet others who spoke with Daniel before he disappeared gave different impressions. A coworker named Roger said that Daniel had come into the office on June 21st, which was unusual for him. He was usually just out in the field. Daniel seemed quiet and off. When asked about it, Daniel admitted that there was a girl that he liked, but she didn't know he existed. He reportedly started talking about miracles, religion, and letting go of his ego, concepts often discussed by spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle. Another friend, Antonio, said that Daniel seemed hyper and excited when they spoke on June 16th. He talked about meeting some girls and said that he had hooked up with one. Antonio described Daniel as being very social, but said he didn't have many friends in Phoenix. He also said that he could be a little bit gullible. The day before he vanished, Daniel sent a troubling text message to his sister, Davisha. It's an emergency. She texted him back several times, trying to understand what the emergency was. He wasn't responding to her texts, but he did answer a 1-minute phone call, but didn't explain what was going on. Her follow-up texts grew increasingly panicked. Daniel, please be safe. I love you. His brother RJ also texted him that night, after hearing about his text to Davisha, saying, quote, you don't have to talk about anything right now, but can you please call me tomorrow? You worried me a bit, and I just want to see if I can help in any way. Love you. One of Daniel's friends, Luke, had stayed with him the weekend before he disappeared. He told police that Daniel didn't mention anything about harming himself, but he did say he'd been feeling a little depressed lately. Another friend, Ruben, spoke with Daniel on June 22nd and said he seemed down, like something was on his mind. There are several theories about what happened to Daniel Robinson. Some have been proposed by police, while some stem from public speculation or David's own investigation. None have been proven, but each offers a different lens through which to view this case. A nearby monastery to live as a monk, but David didn't buy it. He said, quote, the official explanation just does not make sense. Why would he want to disappear like a monk? The monastery was contacted and Daniel was not there. Police also speculated that Daniel may have been going through something emotionally and decided to disappear on purpose. The police report cites a conversation where Daniel's sister said Daniel once told her, quote, "You'll have to get used to me disappearing." But David disputes that Daniel said anything of the sort. There have been several reported sightings of Daniel over the years. July 2021, Mountain Center, California. A woman at Paradise Valley Cafe reported seeing a man she believed was Daniel. He said he was on a spiritual journey and declined taking a photo with her, saying he didn't want people to know where he was. The cafe is located near the busy Pacific Crest Trail. Law enforcement followed up, but staff and hikers in the area didn't recognize Daniel. August 2021, Sedona, Arizona. A bookstore worker named Mark believed he saw Daniel browsing records in the store. He noted the partial arm and said the man looked clean and kept to himself. No surveillance video was available to confirm the sighting. There were also additional sightings in Buckeye in 2021 and Albuquerque, New Mexico in 2022, but police have ruled them out. Theory 2, he took his own life. Others believe Daniel may have been struggling with emotional pain and took his own life. And rather than leave on his own accord to start a new life, as in the previous theory, maybe the struggles he was facing was too much for him and he chose to end it instead. Police also say that weeks before Daniel disappeared, his sister and father had allegedly discussed the possibility of pursuing a mental health evaluation for him, something David has firmly denied. David maintains that Daniel was not suffering from any mental health condition, and that there were no plans for any kind of intervention. And even if Daniel was experiencing emotional distress, it still doesn't explain what happened next. No physical evidence has ever been found to suggest that Daniel ended his own life. No remains, no personal items, no final message to family or friends. Nothing. So if he didn't leave on his own, and he didn't end his own life, is it possible that something else happened entirely? Theory 3, he died in the desert. Police believe the most likely explanation is that Daniel became disoriented after the crash, possibly from a head injury, and wandered off into the desert. They theorize that he may have removed his clothing due to heat-related confusion, sought shade, and ultimately succumbed to the elements or a possible animal attack. Mountain lions do live in the area, and one was even spotted during the search. Investigators checked the area that the mountain lion is known to frequent, but found no trace of Daniel. And that's the biggest hole in this theory. Nothing has ever been found. No remains, no clothing, no belongings, nothing. And remember, this happened in late June, when the Phoenix heat is brutal. Highs are well into triple digits. With no clothes, no shoes, no water, and a possible head injury, how far could anyone get in those conditions? David and volunteers have conducted 50 searches over 35,000 acres. Other human remains have been discovered, but not Daniel's. There are a few additional details worth noting from the police report. It claims that crash reconstruction expert Jeff McGrath, who had been working with David, raised the possibility that Daniel may have unknowingly smoked marijuana that had been laced with PCP, as he was known to smoke. Also states that Jeff believed that Daniel was likely deceased in the desert, not off on a spiritual journey. However, Jeff has never publicly made these statements, and David has strongly criticized portions of the police report, claiming that it contains inaccuracies and even attributes findings from his searches to law enforcement efforts. So it's unclear whether these statements reflect Jeff's past or current opinion, or how accurately they were recorded. So if Daniel didn't walk away and didn't die of exposure or taking his own life, then what's left? For David and public statements made by Jeff McGrath, the answer has always been clear. Theory 4, foul play. This is the theory that David and Jeff believe. They don't claim to know what happened, but they're convinced Daniel didn't walk away and he didn't die by accident. They believe someone else was involved and that person possibly hurt Daniel. David said, quote, "We have a lot of evidence of foul play. We just don't know exactly what happened to Daniel." And he believes there are plenty of unusual details to back that up. As we covered earlier, several aspects of the crash scene don't make sense. A boot was pinned under the vehicle. The sunroof panel was found wedged under the hood, and it wasn't the one above the driver's seat. The red paint transfer that didn't match Daniel's Jeep. Shattered glass found outside the car, possibly from another vehicle or source entirely. David and Jeff believe the Jeep was crashed elsewhere, then dumped in the ravine to make it look like an accident. And while there's no confirmed suspect or motive, the speculation hasn't stopped. Some believe Daniel may have seen something he wasn't supposed to, either related to the land development projects he worked on or something else entirely. Buckeye is one of the fastest growing areas in Arizona, with major real estate money involved. Could Daniel have discovered something that threatened that? Others have also mentioned that Daniel, a young and driven geologist, may have drawn resentment, whether professionally or personally. To be clear, there's no public evidence to support these theories, but David believes the truth is still being hidden, and that it may take someone coming forward to finally reveal what really happened. Several other details continue to raise eyebrows. A man named Bill claimed he saw Daniel in the Hassayampa River bottom the same day he disappeared, but police say Daniel's digital trail didn't match that location. They also couldn't verify Bill's claim that he was a federal worker and suspected he may have been seeking attention or reward money. Daniel's family has said that some of his Instagram posts appear to have been deleted, but sources conflict on whether this happened in the days before he went missing or after. And according to the police report, Jeff McGrath stopped working with David in late 2021 after being asked to not share information with Buckeye police, something that reportedly raised concerns for Jeff. Despite all this, the evidence, the sightings, the theories, one thing remains unchanged. Daniel Robinson has never been found. We know that sometimes when law enforcement isn't enough, we must do things ourselves, especially when you're a parent. That's what David Robinson said, and he's lived it every day since June 2021. Quote, "I cannot stop searching for my son. I cannot stop making sure he receives the justice he deserves and the respect he deserves." David has led over 50 organized searches in the desert and personally reviewed evidence, pushed for transparency, and spoken to the media countless times. In 2024, he even ran for Congress, hoping to improve how missing person cases are handled nationwide. In April 2025, David led another search in the Buckeye area, this time with support from Joseph Petito, father of Gabby Petito. I'm sure many of you know about Gabby. She disappeared not long after Daniel and had tons of media attention that, frankly, Daniel didn't get. Joseph Petito said, quote, "It's inspirational. The amount of energy it takes to do what he does, with the heartache and the unknowing that goes on every day. For David, the emotional toll is unimaginable." He said, quote, "It's hard to say you're searching for your son, walking around the desert with no clothing, no shoes, so I had to mentally put it in my head that I'm doing a recovery, because I need to go find every spot I can out there. My son may be hurt, injured somewhere, stuck, whatever. I need to find my son." Daniel Robinson is still missing. He's now 28 years old. He's 5'8" and around 150 pounds. He has black hair, dark brown eyes, and was born without a right hand. If you have any information about what happened to Daniel, or know anything that could help this case, please contact the Buckeye Police Department or submit anonymous or non-anonymous tips to the Please Help Find Daniel website. For anonymous tips, you can text or call 844-602-0660. You can also support David's ongoing efforts to find his son. Visit pleasehelpfinddaniel.com. Donate to the family's GoFundMe to help with search costs, subscribe to David's YouTube channel, Please Help Find Daniel, and share his videos to help spread the word. I've linked all of those resources in the description. Every bit of support helps keep Daniel's name in the public eye. And if Daniel is out there and sees this, please consider reaching out to your family, even if it's just to say you're okay and you want some space. I do believe that they would respect that. They just need to know that you're okay. If this case resonated with you, please consider subscribing or following on podcast platforms. so you don't miss future episodes. I post weekly stories that deserve to be heard. If this case stood out to you, if you found yourself asking, how can someone vanish with this many questions left unanswered? Then I highly recommend watching my video on Alonzo Brooks next. It's another case where a young man of color went missing. The official story didn't add up, and a family refused to accept silence as the final answer. You can click here to watch that episode now. I'll see you there.